Alright, let's dive into this because there's so much to unpack here. So, the Springboks just beat Argentina 17-10 in Buenos Aires, and on paper, it looks like a typical world champion performance. But if you take a step back and think about it, this game was anything but typical. Personally, I think this match was a masterclass in winning ugly, and that's what makes it so fascinating. Here's why. The Springboks made 13 changes to their lineup, threw in players who hadn't even played in 2026 yet, and still managed to grind out a win. What this really suggests is that Rassie Erasmus is playing the long game here. He's not just thinking about this match, he's thinking about the All Blacks in 2 weeks. And that's the kind of strategic depth that separates good teams from great ones. Now, let's talk about the scrum. One thing that immediately stands out is how the Springboks scrum was both their saviour and their Achilles heel. They won 7 out of 7 scrums, which is insane. But here's the kicker. Their first scrum went to ground, giving Argentina a penalty that led to their first try. What many people don't realise is that the scrum is often as much about psychology as it is about technique. When a team has no rhythm, no confidence, the scrum becomes their anchor. And that's exactly what happened here. The Springboks leaned on their set-piece dominance when nothing else was working, and it paid off. But it also raises a deeper question. Can they rely on this against the All Blacks? I'm not so sure. Speaking of Argentina, let's give credit where it's due. Pablo Matera was the best player on the pitch, and it's not even close. In my opinion, he's one of the most underrated flankers in the game today. What makes this really interesting is how he embodies the Springboks style: physical, relentless, and smart. His 50:22 kick in the 79th minute was a moment of pure genius. A 33-year-old, injury-plagued flanker pulling off a play like that? That's the kind of stuff that keeps coaches up at night. And it's a reminder that Argentina, despite their absences, are building something special under Felipe Contepomi. Now, let's talk about the Springboks spine, or lack thereof. Fassi, Rainek, and Feinberg Mangomezulu were supposed to be the steady hands, but they looked anything but. From my perspective, this was the most concerning part of the match. Feinberg Mangomezulu, in particular, seemed indecisive, and that's not a word you want associated with your playmaker. What this really highlights is the pressure on Rassie Erasmus to get his key players firing before the All Blacks arrive. Because if they play like this in Cape Town, it's going to be a long day. Finally, let's zoom out for a second. Argentina's defense was better than the world champions. Let that sink in. Their moderated push defense took away South Africa's time and space, and it worked. A detail I find fascinating is how they managed to do this without rushing, keeping their spacing intact. This isn't just a one-off performance, it's a statement. If you're the All Blacks watching this, you're taking notes. Because if the Springboks can't fix their attack, they're in trouble. So, where does this leave us? Personally, I think this match was a wake-up call for South Africa. They won, but they didn't convince. And for Argentina, it's a sign that they're on the right track. What makes this really interesting is how both teams will respond. The Springboks have to tighten up, and Argentina have to build on this momentum. If you ask me, the next few weeks are going to be absolutely electric. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below.